The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its vaulted ceiling disappearing into artificial clouds that sparked with bioluminescent lightning. Representatives from 1,000 worlds occupied massive floating platforms, each scaled to accommodate their species' natural proportions. The Krillian delegation required platforms the size of small cities, their whale-like forms stretching nearly a kilometer in length. The Vordhak Empire's insectoid warriors stood 30 meters tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the chamber's prismatic lights. And then, there was the human delegation. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood barely 2 meters tall on a platform no larger than a shuttle bay, dwarfed by the magnificent assembly around her. The other species had long since stopped trying to hide their amusement at humanity's physical insignificance. Whispered conversations in a dozen alien languages carried across the chamber, though the universal translators made their mockery crystal clear. "Look how tiny they are," rumbled Counselor Thexvar of the Titan Confederacy, his voice causing minor seismic tremors through the chamber floor. Standing nearly 50 meters tall, the rocky humanoid barely needed to glance down to see the human platform. How did such small creatures even develop spaceflight? Their ships must be no larger than our escape pods. The Zephyrian delegation's crystalline forms chimed in harmonic laughter. Perhaps they hollowed out asteroids and pushed them with their little chemical rockets, sang Resonator Prime Velthara, her voice creating rainbow patterns in the air. How quaint that the Council allows pets to attend these sessions. Admiral Kexthor of the Draconian Hegemony flexed his massive wings, each one spanning 200 meters. "I've seen their fleet in the outer systems. Adorable little things, really. My flagship's point defense turrets are larger than their dreadnoughts." Sarah Chun maintained her composure, though her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Beside her, Commander Torres and Dr. Nakamura remained similarly stone-faced. They'd endured months of this treatment since humanity had been grudgingly admitted to the Galactic Council. Earth's initial contact had been met with surprise that such small beings had achieved faster-than-light travel, followed quickly by condescending amusement when they learned about human technology and military capabilities. The massive form of Chancellor Mordun called the session to order. The ancient Leviathan's tentacles each measured over 100 meters in length, and his body could have housed a small city. When he spoke, his voice resonated through specialized sonic amplifiers that prevented his natural communication from liquefying smaller species. The Council recognizes the petition from the Andorian Republic regarding territorial disputes in the Kepler sector, Chancellor Mordun announced. The humans have requested mediation rights in this matter. A wave of what could only be described as alien chuckling rippled through the chamber. The Andorians themselves, standing 15 meters tall with their characteristic blue-scaled skin, seemed particularly amused. "With respect, Chancellor," said Prime Minister Vexnala of Andoria, "while we appreciate the humans' enthusiasm, this is a matter requiring serious military consideration. The disputed systems contain significant strategic resources, and the hegemony has already deployed battle fleets to the region. This is not a situation for diplomatic tourism." The Draconian Admiral Kexthor spread his wings wider, a display of dominance that cast shadows over dozens of smaller delegations. The hegemony's claim to those systems is absolute. Any interference will be met with overwhelming force. I suggest our tiny human friends concern themselves with matters more suited to their scale, perhaps mediating disputes between orbital habitats and their waste management protocols. The chamber erupted in what humans might have recognized as alien laughter. The sound was a cacophony of rumbles, chimes, roars, and harmonic vibrations that made the entire structure tremble. Sarah Chen stepped forward to the edge of her platform, her voice carrying clearly through her translator unit despite the derision around her. The Galactic Accords clearly state that any member species may request mediation rights in territorial disputes. Humanity formally exercises that right. "And what exactly do you propose to mediate with?" asked Resonator Prime Velthara, her crystalline form pulsing with amused colors. "Your entire species' military could fit inside one of our frigate hangars. The forces gathering in the Kepler sector number in the thousands of capital ships, each one massing more than your entire home fleet." Commander Torres spoke up, his voice steady despite the mounting ridicule. "The size of our ships is not indicative of their capabilities." "Oh, this is rich," boomed Counselor Thexvar. "The little mammals think their toys can compete with real warships." "Child, I've seen your technical specifications. Your largest vessel mass is barely 50,000 tons. My personal yacht is larger than that." Dr. Nakamura adjusted her tablet, accessing detailed files that made several nearby delegations lean forward with curiosity. "Counselor Thexvar, you're absolutely correct about the mass difference. Our largest vessels are indeed significantly smaller than galactic standard." Finally, some honesty from the humans. Admiral Kexthor rumbled with satisfaction. "However, Dr. Nakamura continued, mass and size are not the only factors determining military effectiveness. Human vessels are designed around different principles than galactic standard ships." "Different principles?" The Krillian delegate's massive form created subsonic vibrations as he spoke. "You mean primitive principles? Your ships still use fusion drives and chemical weapons. You haven't even mastered anti-gravity propulsion." "We use fusion drives by choice," Sarah Chun replied calmly. "They provide certain tactical advantages that anti-gravity systems do not." This statement caused another wave of alien amusement to sweep the chamber. "Tactical advantages?" Prime Minister Vexnala's scales shifted to patterns indicating humor. "What possible advantage could primitive propulsion offer over gravitic manipulation?" "Stealth," Sarah said simply. The laughter died somewhat as several military delegates exchanged glances. Admiral Kexthor's massive head tilted slightly. "Stealth is irrelevant in modern warfare. Gravitic sensors can detect any significant mass at ranges measured in light years. They can detect masses that use gravitic propulsion," Commander Torres corrected. "Fusion drives produce significantly different signatures. Signatures that are even easier to detect," scoffed the Admiral. "The energy output alone is directed and contained through magnetic field manipulation," Dr. Nakamura interrupted. "Human vessels can reduce their detectable signatures to less than 1% of galactic standard ships." "Impossible," declared Resonator Prime Velthara. "No ship can function with that level of emission control." "Galactic standard ships cannot," Sarachin agreed. "They require massive anti-gravity generators, which produce unavoidable gravitic distortions. They need enormous fusion reactors to power those generators, creating massive energy signatures. Their weapons systems rely on particle acceleration, requiring tremendous power draws. Human ships operate on different principles entirely." Chancellor Mordunn's ancient eyes focused on the human delegation with something approaching interest. "Explain these principles." Sarah nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who activated a holographic display scaled for the massive chamber. The image showed a human destroyer, its sleek form barely visible against a star field. "Human military doctrine emphasizes efficiency over raw power," Dr. Nakamura explained. "Our ships use redundant fusion reactors operating at lower output levels, connected to magnetic field generators that can completely contain exhaust signatures. Our weapons systems use kinetic projectiles accelerated by magnetic rails rather than particle beams requiring massive energy draws." "Kinetic weapons?" Admiral Kexthor's voice carried disbelief. "You're describing museum pieces. Solid projectiles cannot penetrate modern shielding. Solid projectiles traveling at 30% of light speed can penetrate anything," Commander Torres stated matter-of-factly. The chamber fell silent for several moments as the implications sank in. 30%. Counselor Thexvar's rocky form seemed to shift slightly. "That's impossible. The energy requirements alone are manageable when you're not powering massive anti-gravity systems," Sarachin explained. "Human ships dedicate nearly 60% of their power generation to weapons and propulsion. Galactic standard ships dedicate less than 20%, with the remainder required for anti-gravity generation and maintenance." "Even if this is true," Prime Minister Vexnala said, though her confident tone had wavered slightly, "numbers matter in warfare. Your entire species has perhaps a few hundred ships. The forces gathering in the Kepler sector number in the thousands. How many ships do you believe humanity possesses?" Dr. Nakamura asked with what might have been genuine curiosity. "Our intelligence networks are quite thorough," Admiral Kexthor said smugly. Earth's orbital shipyards have produced approximately 300 vessels over the past 50 years. Your industrial capacity is limited by your planet's small size and primitive manufacturing techniques. Your intelligence networks have observed Earth's orbital facilities, Saracen agreed. However, humanity has not limited its shipbuilding to Earth orbit. Other human colonies have minimal industrial capacity, Resonator Prime Velthera noted. Your off-world settlements are quite small. Our colonies are indeed small, Commander Torres acknowledged. Humanity has pursued a different colonization strategy than most galactic species. Different how? Chancellor Mordun asked. Dr. Nakamura expanded the holographic display, showing a star map with human settlements marked in blue. The pattern that emerged caused murmurs throughout the chamber. Most species establish large colonies on habitable worlds, she explained. Humans have established thousands of small outposts throughout uninhabited systems, many on asteroids, moons, or space stations. Each outpost maintains modest industrial capabilities, but collectively, they represent a distributed manufacturing network spanning hundreds of systems, Saracen finished. Each facility is too small to attract attention from galactic intelligence networks, but together they've produced a fleet somewhat larger than 300 ships. How much larger? Admiral Kexthor demanded. Approximately 100 times larger, Commander Torres said casually. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background hum of the chamber's environmental systems seemed muted. 30,000 ships. Prime Minister Vexnala's voice carried disbelief and the first hints of concern. 37,416 as of last week, Dr. Nakamura corrected. Though that number changes daily as new vessels complete construction. Counselor Thexvar's massive form seemed to lean forward slightly. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected fleet movements of that magnitude. Your sensors detect massive gravitic distortions from anti-gravity-equipped fleets, Sarah Chun explained patiently. Human fleets travel using fusion drives and navigate through normal space rather than gravitic manipulation. We're effectively invisible to galactic standard detection systems until we choose to be seen. This is ridiculous, Admiral Kexthor declared, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Even if such a fleet existed, logistics alone would make it ineffective. No species can coordinate that many vessels across such distances. Galactic species cannot, Dr. Nakamura agreed. They rely on real-time communication networks that depend on quantum entanglement arrays. Human communication systems use different principles. What principles? Chancellor Mordun asked, and there was no longer any amusement in his ancient voice. Humanity developed our faster-than-light communication before we developed FDL travel, Commander Torres explained. Our communication network is based on quantum field manipulation rather than particle entanglement. The result is instantaneous communication across unlimited distances without the infrastructure requirements of galactic standard networks. Unlimited distances. Resonator Prime Velthera's crystalline form had shifted to colors indicating concern rather than amusement. Every human ship can communicate directly with Earth Command and with every other human ship in real time, regardless of location, Saracen confirmed. Fleet coordination that would be impossible for galactic standard forces is routine for human naval operations. The implications were beginning to dawn on the assembled delegates. A distributed fleet of 37,000 vessels, each effectively invisible to galactic sensors, coordinated through real-time communication networks, armed with weapons capable of penetrating any known defensive system. Of course, Admiral Kexthor said, his voice now careful and measured. These claims are unsubstantiated. You could simply be attempting to intimidate the Council with fictional capabilities. Saracen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Admiral, would you like a demonstration? What sort of demonstration? Chancellor Mordun asked. The Kepler sector is currently experiencing a territorial dispute, Sarah said. Multiple fleets have gathered in the region, creating what your analysts describe as the largest military buildup in recent galactic history. I propose that the human delegation travel to the disputed system to observe the situation firsthand. With what escort? Prime Minister Vexnala demanded. The region is heavily militarized. A single human vessel would be destroyed the moment it entered the system. Who said anything about a single vessel? Commander Torres asked mildly. Dr. Nakamura manipulated her holographic display, showing a tactical overview of the Kepler sector. Red markers indicated Draconian hegemony forces. Blue markers showed Andorian Republic positions. The display showed nearly 3,000 capital ships from various factions, all positioned within a few light hours of each other. Current galactic intelligence estimates suggest this is the largest fleet gathering in recorded history, Dr. Nakamura noted. Would the Council agree that any force capable of imposing order in this region could reasonably claim significant military capability? Obviously, Admiral Kexthor replied, which is why the situation requires experienced galactic powers, not amateur interventions. Then, humanity formally requests permission to demonstrate our mediation capabilities in the Kepler sector, Saracen announced. We will dispatch a diplomatic mission escorted by appropriate naval forces. How many ships do you propose to send? Councillor Thexvar asked. Enough, Saracen replied simply. Chancellor Mordun considered this for several long moments. The ancient Leviathan had survived countless galactic conflicts and possessed instincts honed by millennia of experience. Something in the humans' confidence troubled him, but their claims seemed impossible to verify without direct observation. The Council will permit a human diplomatic mission to the Kepler sector, he finally announced. However, be advised that the region is extremely dangerous. The assembled fleets represent the military might of a dozen major powers. Any hostile actions will result in immediate retaliation. Understood, Chancellor, Saracen replied. We'll depart within the hour. Within the hour? Prime Minister Vexnala's scales shifted to patterns of surprise. Don't you need time to summon your escort fleet from wherever it's currently positioned? Dr. Nakamura smiled slightly. Our escort is already in position. Where? Admiral Kexthor demanded, his massive head swiveling to look at nearby sensor displays. Our instruments show no significant fleet movements in this sector. They wouldn't, Commander Torres said. Human fleets have been stationed throughout galactic space for several months now, positioned to respond to any developing crisis. The Council has been under continuous observation and protection during this entire session. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations as delegates from 1,000 species suddenly realized they had been surrounded by invisible forces for months without knowing it. Impossible, Admiral Kexthor roared, his wings spreading to their full span. No fleet could remain undetected in the heart of galactic civilization. Galactic standard fleets could not, Saracen agreed. Fortunately, human fleets operate by different standards. She nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who activated a new display mode on her holographic projector. The star map of the local sector suddenly filled with green markers, each one representing a human vessel. The pattern that emerged showed the entire galactic capital region was saturated with human ships, positioned at every major hyperspace junction, orbital facility, and strategic location. 237 human vessels are currently within 1 light hour of this chamber, Dr. Nakamura announced calmly. They have been monitoring this session to ensure the safety of all delegates. The silence that followed was profound. Species that had spent the morning ridiculing human military capabilities now stared at a tactical display, showing they had been completely surrounded without their knowledge. Chancellor Mordun's ancient voice carried a note of respect that had been absent before. When do you depart for the Kepler sector, Ambassador Chun? Immediately, Chancellor, Sarah replied, gathering her materials. I suspect the situation there will resolve itself rather quickly once we arrive. As the human delegation prepared to leave, whispered conversations began throughout the chamber, but the tone had changed dramatically. The mockery and amusement had been replaced by nervous speculation and careful calculations. Admiral Kexthor activated his personal communication array, sending encrypted messages to Hegemony Command. The other military delegates followed suit, each reporting the stunning revelations to their respective governments. None of them yet understood the full implications of what they had learned. The discovery that humanity possessed a massive, invisible fleet was shocking enough. The realization that this fleet had been watching them undetected for months was deeply troubling. But they had not yet grasped the most important detail in Dr. Nakamura's presentation. She had mentioned that 37,000 human ships had been constructed, but the tactical display had shown only 237 vessels in the immediate area. No one had asked where the other 36,000 ships were positioned. The Kepler sector had become a powder keg waiting for a spark. Admiral Kexthor's massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion hung in space like a metallic mountain, its 5-kilometer length bristling with weapons designed to crack planets. Around it, the Draconian hegemony's third battle fleet formed an intimidating wall of military might. 800 capital ships, each one a monument to the Empire's technological superiority and martial tradition. Across the disputed zone, the Andorian Republic had deployed their own formidable forces. Prime Admiral Zex Terra commanded from the Bridge of Democratic Resolve, a 3-kilometer heavy cruiser surrounded by 600 allied vessels. The Andorians had called in favors from a dozen client species, creating a coalition fleet that represented the largest military gathering in their history. Between the two fleets, automated buoys marked the contested border, their broadcasts repeating territorial claims in dozens of languages. The 3-star systems in dispute contained rare neutronium deposits and strategic hyperspace junctions that both powers considered essential to their security. Status report. Admiral Kexthor rumbled, his voice echoing through the Eternal Dominion's cavernous bridge. The command center could have housed a small city, with crew stations arranged across multiple tiers to accommodate the Draconians' massive scale. Andorian forces maintained position at the outer marker buoys. Reported fleet tactician Vorgun, his own impressive form dwarfed by his admiral's presence. Their defensive formations suggest they're prepared for extended siege warfare. And the neutrals? 17 species have dispatch observation fleets to monitor the situation. The Galactic Council has issued the standard warnings about collateral damage and civilian casualties. Vorgun paused, consulting his displays. There's also been an unusual development. Admiral Kexthor's massive head turned toward his subordinate. Explain. A human diplomatic vessel entered the sector approximately 2 hours ago. It transmitted standard peaceful intentions and requested permission to observe negotiations. The humans. Kexthor's voice carried amusement mixed with irritation. Those tiny creatures from the council session? What possible business do they have here? Unknown, Admiral. The vessel appears to be alone, a small diplomatic ship consistent with their known technology. Ignore them, Kexthor decided. If they want to watch real powers settle territorial disputes, let them learn something. Perhaps they'll gain perspective on their insignificance. What Admiral Kexthor didn't know was that the small diplomatic ship was actually the UES Meridian, one of humanity's newest ambassador-class vessels. From the outside, it appeared to be an unremarkable craft barely 200 meters in length. Its hull reflected no unusual energy signatures, and its fusion drive produced emissions well within normal parameters for human technology. Captain Maria Santos stood on the Meridian's bridge, studying the tactical displays with professional interest. The human bridge was cramped by galactic standards, barely 30 meters across, but it buzzed with efficient activity as her crew monitored the developing situation. Confirm fleet positions, Captain Santos ordered. Aye, Captain, responded Commander Williams from the tactical station. Draconian hegemony forces number 837 capital ships arranged in standard intimidation formation. Andorian coalition shows 614 vessels in defensive postures. Multiple observation fleets from neutral powers positioned at safe distances. And our assets? All human vessels report ready status, Williams confirmed. Admiral Chen's task forces are in position and awaiting orders. Captain Santos nodded, then activated the ship's quantum communication array. This is Meridian to Fleet Command. We're in position to begin mediation protocols. The response came instantly from Admiral Rebecca Chun, Sarah Chen's sister and commander of humanity's expeditionary fleet. Understood, Meridian. Political authorization confirmed. You are cleared to commence operations. Thank you, Admiral. Beginning diplomatic contact now. Captain Santos opened a channel to both fleet commanders simultaneously. Admiral Kexthor, Prime Admiral Zex Terra. This is Captain Santos of the United Earth Ship Meridian. I'm transmitting formal mediation proposals from the Galactic Council as authorized by recent Assembly Resolution 2847. The response from the Draconian commander came within moments, his voice carrying barely contained contempt. Captain Santos, while the hegemony respects the Council's authority, this dispute requires military resolution. I suggest you withdraw to a safe distance before hostilities commence. Prime Admiral Zextera's reply followed quickly after. The Andorian Republic appreciates the Council's concern, but we cannot abandon our legitimate territorial claims. These systems have been Andorian for 3 generations, and they will be Draconian from this day forward, Admiral Kexthor declared. I'm transmitting one final ultimatum to the Andorian forces. They have 1 hour to withdraw, or we will remove them. Captain Santos maintained her diplomatic tone despite the escalating tensions. Both commanders, I urge you to consider the broader implications of this conflict. The neutronium resources in these systems could be shared through negotiated mining rights. The hyperspace junctions could be jointly administered for mutual benefit. Humans, Admiral Kexthor rumbled with obvious amusement. Your species' naivety is almost endearing. There is no sharing in real politics, only strength and weakness. The hegemony possesses strength. The Andorians will learn about weakness. Admiral, Prime Admiral Zextera interrupted. The Andorian Republic has faced down draconian aggression before. Your ships are impressive, but numbers are not everything. Indeed they are not, Kexthor agreed. Quality matters as well. Each of my dreadnoughts could destroy 50 of your largest vessels. Captain Santos listened to the exchange with growing concern. Both commanders were experienced military professionals, but they were allowing pride and political pressure to override strategic judgment. The situation was deteriorating rapidly toward a conflict that would devastate both fleets and potentially destabilize the entire sector. Commanders, she tried again. Perhaps a cooling-off period would allow for more productive negotiations. Both fleets could withdraw to neutral positions while cooling off. Admiral Kexthor's laughter was like distant thunder. Captain, this is not a playground dispute between younglings. This is a contest between civilizations for strategic resources. The strong will take what they need, and the weak will accept what they're given. Or the weak will fight, Prime Admiral Zextera added grimly. The Andorian Republic has never surrendered to external pressure, and we won't start today. Captain Santos exchanged glances with her tactical officer. The situation was rapidly moving beyond diplomatic resolution. She made a command decision that would have profound implications for galactic politics. Admiral Kexthor, Prime Admiral Zextera, I'm afraid I must formally invoke Galactic Council Emergency Protocol 7. Both alien commanders fell silent for several moments, clearly consulting their legal databases. Protocol 7. Admiral Kexthor's voice carried new suspicion. That protocol authorizes Council peacekeeping forces to intervene in conflicts threatening galactic stability. Correct, Captain Santos confirmed. I'm formally notifying both fleets that human peacekeeping forces will arrive shortly to establish a neutral zone pending formal arbitration. Peacekeeping forces? Prime Admiral Zextera's tone mixed confusion with concern. Captain, with respect, humanity lacks the military capacity for peacekeeping operations of this scale. Moreover, Admiral Kexthor added, his voice hardening, the draconian hegemony does not recognize human authority in this matter. Any interference will be considered an act of war. Captain Santos took a deep breath before responding. Admiral, Prime Admiral, I understand your skepticism regarding human capabilities. However, I should inform you that you are currently surrounded by the largest peacekeeping force in galactic history. Surrounded? Admiral Kexthor's voice carried disbelief. Captain, our sensors show only your single vessel within weapons range. Are you suggesting that humans have developed some form of cloaking technology? Not cloaking, Admiral. Simple stealth. Human vessels produce minimal detectable signatures when operating in passive mode. We've been monitoring this situation for weeks, positioning appropriate forces to respond if needed. Commander Williams activated the Meridian's external sensors array, immediately detecting the massive alien fleets positioned throughout the system. But he also detected something else. Energy signatures that galactic standard sensors would miss entirely. Captain, Williams reported with professional calm. I'm reading 37,000, 416 human vessels currently within the Kepler sector. The communication channels fell silent for nearly a full minute. 37,000. Prime Admiral Zextera's voice carried pure disbelief. That's impossible. No fleet that size could approach undetected. Galactic standard fleets could not, Captain Santos agreed. However, human naval doctrine emphasizes stealth and surprise over raw intimidation. Our vessels have been arriving in small groups over the past month, using standard civilian shipping lanes and positioning themselves throughout the system. Admiral Kexthor's response was immediate and aggressive. If such forces existed, they would show up on our sensors. The Eternal Dominion carries the most advanced detection equipment in the galaxy. Your equipment is optimized for detecting anti-gravity drives, particle beam weapons, and massive energy signatures, Commander Williams explained. Human ships use fusion propulsion, magnetic field manipulation, and kinetic weapons. We're effectively invisible to your sensors until we choose to reveal ourselves. Prove it, Admiral Kexthor demanded. Captain Santos nodded to her tactical officer. Commander Williams, please illuminate our peacekeeping forces for our guests. Williams activated a system-wide communications pulse using quantum field manipulation, the same technology that allowed instantaneous human communications across galactic distances. Every human vessel in the system received the signal simultaneously and responded by powering up their active sensors. The effect on the galactic standard sensor displays was immediate and shocking. Suddenly, space around both alien fleets was filled with energy signatures that had been completely invisible moments before. Human vessels materialized on sensors like ghosts becoming solid, not just dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands. The tactical displays on both flagship bridges showed the same impossible sight. They were completely surrounded by human ships positioned at every possible attack vector from every direction, at ranges varying from point-blank to extreme sensor range. The human fleet hadn't arrived. It had been there all along, watching and waiting. By the Ancient Ones, Prime Admiral Zextera whispered, her voice barely audible over the communication channel. There are thousands of them. Impossible, Admiral Kexthor declared, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Our intelligence networks would have detected fleet movements of this magnitude. Admiral, his fleet tactician Vorgun reported with obvious shock. Long-range sensors are confirming the readings. I'm detecting human vessels at every major hyperspace junction in the sector. They've surrounded the entire region. Captain Santos maintained her diplomatic tone despite the historic nature of the moment. Gentlemen, the human peacekeeping force is now visible to your sensors. I trust this demonstrates our serious commitment to maintaining galactic stability. How long? Admiral Kexthor demanded. How long have your forces been in position? Elements of our fleet have been monitoring potential conflict zones throughout galactic space for approximately 6 months, Captain Santos replied. The specific concentration in the Kepler sector began 3 weeks ago when our intelligence networks identified this dispute as likely to escalate to military action. 6 months, Prime Admiral Zextera repeated numbly. You've been watching us for 6 months without our knowledge. Watching and protecting, Captain Santos corrected gently. Human doctrine emphasizes prevention over reaction. We prefer to position peacekeeping forces before conflicts develop rather than responding after they begin. Admiral Kexthor was frantically reviewing his tactical displays, trying to understand the strategic implications of what he was seeing. Captain, I'm reading human vessels positioned behind my fleet, between my ships, in formations that would be impossible to achieve without passing directly through our sensor perimeter. Human ships are significantly smaller than galactic standard vessels, Commander Williams explained. A human destroyer masses approximately 50,000 tons, small enough to maneuver between larger ships without being detected. Our cruisers and battleships are correspondingly more compact. But the numbers, Prime Admiral Zextera protested. 37,000 ships represents a larger fleet than the combined navies of the Andorian Republic and our 23 allied species. Humanity has pursued a different shipbuilding philosophy than most galactic powers, Captain Santos explained. Rather than building massive individual vessels, we construct large numbers of smaller, more specialized ships. The total tonnage of our fleet is comparable to other major powers, but distributed across many more hulls. What she didn't mention was that human ships, despite their smaller size, carried weapons capable of penetrating any known defensive system and armor designed to withstand direct hits from galactic standard weapons. Miniaturization and efficiency had always been human strengths, and those advantages had been amplified by access to galactic technology and materials. "This changes nothing," Admiral Kexthor declared, though his voice carried less certainty than before. The Draconian hegemony's claim to these systems remains valid regardless of external intervention, as does the Andorian Republic's historical presence, Prime Admiral Zexterra added. But she too sounded less confident than before. Captain Santos had been hoping to avoid this next step, but both commanders were still posturing despite being clearly outmaneuvered. "Gentlemen, I'm afraid I must request that both fleets withdraw to neutral positions while formal arbitration proceedings begin." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Kexthor asked. "Then, the peacekeeping force will be required to establish a neutral zone through more direct means," Captain Santos replied calmly. "You're threatening us?" The Draconian Admiral's voice carried dangerous undertones. "I'm informing you of standard peacekeeping protocols. Any vessel that refuses to comply with Council arbitration orders will be disabled and escorted from the disputed zone." Admiral Kexthor's massive form straightened on his bridge. "Captain, the Eternal Dominion alone masses over 200 million tons. My battle fleet represents the combined military might of the Draconian hegemony. Do you seriously believe your tiny ships pose a threat to forces of this magnitude?" Captain Santos glanced at Commander Williams, who nodded almost imperceptibly. They had hoped to resolve the situation through pure intimidation, but some lessons could only be taught through demonstration. "Admiral," Captain Santos said with genuine regret, "humanity sincerely hopes to avoid any violent confrontation. However, if you require a demonstration of our capabilities, we can provide one." "A demonstration?" Admiral Kexthor laughed, though the sound was forced. "Very well, Captain. Show me what your toy navy can accomplish against real warships." "Commander Williams," Captain Santos ordered, "please select an appropriate target for a demonstration strike." Williams studied his tactical display for several moments. "Captain, I recommend the asteroid designated Kepler 7, Charlie. It's roughly equivalent in mass and composition to a Draconian heavy cruiser, positioned at the edge of the disputed zone where weapons fire won't endanger either fleet." "Excellent choice. Transmit targeting data to Admiral Chen's task force." "Aye, Captain. Target designated." Admiral Chen acknowledges and reports ready to fire. Admiral Kexthor was monitoring human communications through his fleet's intelligence gathering systems. "Admiral Chen, I thought you were commanding this operation," Captain Santos. "I command the diplomatic mission, Admiral." Admiral Chen commands the peacekeeping fleet. "Where is this Admiral Chen located?" Prime Admiral Zexterra asked. "Our sensors show no command vessel larger than your diplomatic ship." "Admiral Chen is currently aboard the US Leviathan, positioned approximately 50,000 kilometers off your starboard bow," Captain Santos replied. Both alien commanders frantically checked their sensor displays, finding nothing but empty space at the specified coordinates. "There's nothing there," Admiral Kexthor declared. "The Leviathan is currently operating in full stealth mode," Commander Williams explained. "She'll decloak momentarily to demonstrate our weapons capabilities." "Weapons demonstration commencing in 30 seconds, Captain Santos announced. "All vessels please observe asteroid Kepler 7, Charlie." The next 30 seconds passed in tense silence as thousands of sensors throughout both alien fleets focused on the designated target. The asteroid was unremarkable, a rocky body roughly 3 kilometers in diameter, composed primarily of iron and nickel with trace amounts of rare metals. Under normal circumstances, it would have taken several coordinated bombardments from capital ship weapons to destroy such a massive object. "Demonstration commencing now," Admiral Chen's voice announced over the communication channel. Space itself seemed to shimmer 50,000 kilometers from the Draconian flagship as the US Leviathan deactivated her stealth systems. The human command vessel appeared as if materializing from nowhere, a sleek, predatory shape barely 600 meters in length but bristling with weapons systems unlike anything in galactic standard arsenals. The Leviathan fired a single shot. The projectile was invisible to galactic standard sensors, traveling at 31% of light speed and massing only a few kilograms. But kinetic energy increases exponentially with velocity, and the small tungsten penetrator carried more destructive potential than most planetary bombardment systems. The impact was instantaneous and absolute. The 3-kilometer asteroid simply ceased to exist, converted to expanding plasma by energies that defied easy calculation. The shockwave was visible across the entire system as matter that had been solid rock became a brief, brilliant star. Both alien fleets fell silent as they processed what they had witnessed. A single shot from a single human vessel had accomplished what should have required sustained bombardment from multiple capital ships. Demonstration complete, Admiral Chun announced calmly. All peacekeeping forces remain ready to assist with conflict resolution. Admiral Kexthor's voice, when he finally spoke, carried a note of respect that had been entirely absent before. Captain Santos, the Draconian hegemony, acknowledges the effectiveness of human peacekeeping capabilities. As does the Andorian Republic, Prime Admiral Zexterra added quickly. We are prepared to discuss neutral zone arrangements. Captain Santos allowed herself a small smile. Excellent. Formal arbitration proceedings will begin within the hour. Both fleets will withdraw to positions 30 light minutes from the disputed systems while negotiations proceed. And your peacekeeping forces? Admiral Kexthor asked. Will remain in position to ensure compliance with arbitration agreements, Captain Santos replied. Standard peacekeeping protocol. As both alien fleets began their withdrawal, Captain Santos reflected on the broader implications of what had just occurred. For the first time in galactic history, a human fleet had openly demonstrated its capabilities to major galactic powers. The age of humanity being dismissed as insignificant primitives was ending. But she also knew that this was only the beginning. Word of what had happened in the Kepler sector would spread throughout galactic civilization within days. Every major power would be reassessing their relationship with humanity, and not all of those reassessments would be peaceful. The galaxy was about to discover that size wasn't everything, and that the smallest species could sometimes cast the largest shadows. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 72 hours after the Kepler sector incident. But the massive chamber felt fundamentally different from the previous gathering. Where once there had been casual amusement at humanity's presence, now there was careful attention and barely concealed tension. The various alien delegations spoke in hushed tones, their conversations dominated by speculation about human capabilities and intentions. Ambassador Sarah Chun took her position on the same modest platform, but this time no one commented on its size. Commander Torres and Dr. Nakamura flanked her as before, but their body language reflected the shift in galactic perception. They no longer appeared to be tolerated guests, but acknowledged players in galactic politics. Chancellor Mordun called the assembly to order with obvious reluctance. The ancient Leviathan had ruled galactic politics for centuries, but the events in the Kepler sector had introduced variables that even his vast experience couldn't easily categorize. The Council recognizes the emergency petition submitted by the Draconian hegemony regarding recent developments in the Kepler sector. Chancellor Mordun announced, his massive voice carrying undertones of uncertainty. Admiral Kexthor had arrived at the council chamber aboard a diplomatic transport rather than his flagship, a fact that was not lost on the assembled delegates. The massive Draconian stood at his full height, his impressive form somehow diminished by recent events. Honorable Chancellor, Admiral Kexthor began, his voice carrying none of its previous arrogance. The hegemony brings urgent concerns about human military activities in the Kepler sector and throughout galactic space. Recent intelligence suggests that humanity has deployed forces far exceeding any previous estimates of their capabilities. The Andorian Republic seconds this concern, added Prime Minister Vexnala, her blue-scaled features showing signs of stress. Our fleets encountered human vessels demonstrating technology and tactics that pose fundamental questions about galactic security. Councillor Thexvar of the Titan Confederacy leaned forward, his rocky form creaking audibly. Admiral Kexthor, You reported that human forces surrounded both fleets in the Kepler sector. Given the known limitations of human technology, how is such a claim possible? That is precisely the problem, Counselor, Admiral Kexthor replied grimly. Human technology appears to be significantly more advanced than any of us realized. Their vessels operate using principles that make them effectively invisible to our sensor networks. Invisible ships? Resonator Prime Velthara's crystalline form pulsed with skeptical colors. Surely you're exaggerating the threat. I'm understating it, Admiral Kexthor declared flatly. A single human vessel destroyed a 3-kilometer asteroid with one shot. A single shot, counselors. The energy requirements for such a feat should be beyond the capacity of their small ships. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as the implications sank in. Several delegations activated their communication arrays, transmitting urgent reports to their home governments. Chancellor Mordun gestured for silence. Ambassador Chun, the Council requests clarification regarding human military capabilities and intentions. Sarah Chun rose to address the assembly, her demeanor calm despite the obvious tension surrounding her. Honorable Chancellor, members of the Council, humanity appreciates the opportunity to address these concerns directly. Then, address them, Admiral Kexthor demanded. How many ships does humanity actually possess? What are your true capabilities? And what are your intentions regarding galactic security? Sarah nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who activated her holographic display. This time, however, the projections were scaled for the massive chamber and designed to be visible to all assembled delegates. The Council has asked about human capabilities, Dr. Nakamura began, so I'll provide accurate numbers. As of this morning, humanity maintains 43,789 active military vessels distributed throughout galactic space. The silence that followed was profound. Even the background hum of the chamber's environmental systems seemed muted. 43,000 ships. Counselor Thexvar's voice carried disbelief. That represents a larger fleet than the combined forces of the 20 largest galactic powers. In terms of hull count, yes, Dr. Nakamura agreed. However, individual human vessels are significantly smaller than galactic standard warships. The total tonnage of our fleet is approximately equivalent to the combined forces of 7 major powers, not 20. 7 major powers, Prime Minister Vexnala repeated numbly. Humanity has been presenting itself as a minor species, while maintaining military forces equivalent to 7 major civilizations. Humanity never misrepresented its status, Commander Torres corrected. Our diplomatic presentations have always been accurate. We are a small species with limited territorial holdings. However, we never claimed to possess limited defensive capabilities. Defensive capabilities? Admiral Kexthor's voice carried dangerous undertones. Admiral, no species deploys 43,000 ships for defensive purposes. Sarah Chun stepped forward. Admiral Kexthor raises an important point. Humanity's fleet deployment does extend far beyond simple defense of our territory. We have positioned forces throughout galactic space as part of our commitment to maintaining galactic stability. Maintaining stability? Chancellor Mordun's ancient voice carried new concern. Ambassador Chun, are you suggesting that humanity has appointed itself as galactic peacekeepers? Not appointed ourselves, Chancellor. We're responding to a clearly identified need. In the past year alone, there have been 17 major territorial disputes, 43 trade war escalations, and 6 attempted genocides. The current galactic peacekeeping mechanisms have proven inadequate to address these challenges. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for over 1,000 years, Counselor Thexvar declared indignantly. The Galactic Council has managed conflicts, Dr. Nakamura corrected, displaying statistical analyses. Peace implies the absence of warfare, but galactic civilization has experienced continuous low-level conflicts throughout its history. On average, there are over 300 active military disputes at any given time. Low-level conflicts are inevitable in any civilization spanning millions of worlds, Resonator Prime Velthara argued. The Council cannot, and should not attempt to eliminate all disagreements. We agree, Sarachan replied. However, many of these conflicts escalate unnecessarily because effective intervention forces cannot respond quickly enough to prevent violence. Human peacekeeping doctrine emphasizes positioning forces before conflicts develop rather than responding after they begin. Which brings us back to the central question. Admiral Kexthor said grimly, "How long have human forces been positioned throughout galactic space without our knowledge?" Commander Torres consulted his tactical display before responding. The first phase of deployment began 14 months ago. Full coverage was achieved approximately 6 months ago. 14 months, Prime Minister Vexnala whispered. You've been surrounding galactic civilization for over a year. Protecting galactic civilization, Sarachan corrected. Counselors, in the past 6 months, human peacekeeping forces have prevented 12 conflicts from escalating to warfare, interdicted 7 piracy operations, and provided disaster relief to 9 systems facing natural catastrophes. Without authorization, Chancellor Mordun pointed out, the Galactic Council was not consulted about any of these interventions. Formal authorization would have required council debate, committee review, and political negotiations, Dr. Nakamura explained. The average response time for council-authorized peacekeeping operations is 37 days. Most conflicts require immediate intervention to prevent escalation. So humanity has taken unilateral action throughout galactic space. Counselor Thexvar rumbled ominously. This represents a fundamental violation of galactic sovereignty. Does it? Sarachan asked. Counselors, may I remind you of the Galactic Accords, Article 15, which explicitly authorizes any member species to provide emergency assistance to prevent humanitarian disasters. Emergency assistance does not include deploying massive military fleets, Admiral Kexthor objected. Article 15 places no limitations on the scale of emergency assistance, Commander Torres noted. It merely requires that such assistance be provided in good faith for humanitarian purposes. Chancellor Mordun's massive form shifted slightly. Ambassador Chun, even if your actions are technically legal under the Accords, the Council must consider the political implications. No single species has ever possessed the military capacity to dominate galactic space. Humanity has no intention of dominating galactic space, Sarachan replied firmly. Our peacekeeping deployment is exactly that, peacekeeping. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our current holdings. How can we verify such claims? Demanded Resonator Prime Velthera. If human forces are invisible to our sensors, how can we confirm your actual intentions? Dr. Nakamura smiled slightly. Counselor, I can provide real-time verification of human force dispositions and activities. She manipulated her holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of local galactic space. Green markers appeared throughout the region, each one representing a human vessel or facility. This display shows all human military assets within 50 light-years of the Council chamber, Dr. Nakamura explained. As you can see, our forces are positioned to monitor major shipping routes, protect key installations, and respond rapidly to developing crises. All of them, Admiral Kexthor asked suspiciously. Every human military vessel, support facility, and staging area, Dr. Nakamura confirmed. Transparency is essential for maintaining galactic trust. The displayed information was staggering. Human forces were positioned at every major hyperspace junction, orbiting key industrial worlds, patrolling remote systems where pirates might operate, and stationed near potential conflict zones. The scope of the deployment was far beyond what any galactic power had thought possible. This is comprehensive, Chancellor Mordun observed with obvious understatement. Effective peacekeeping requires comprehensive coverage, Commander Torres explained. Conflicts can develop anywhere, and rapid response capabilities depend on forward positioning. But the cost, Prime Minister Vexnala protested. Maintaining forces of this magnitude must require enormous resources. How can humanity sustain such expenditures? Human military doctrine emphasizes efficiency and resource optimization, Sarachan replied. Our ships are designed to operate independently for extended periods with minimal logistical support. Additionally, our distributed manufacturing network allows for local production and maintenance. Distributed manufacturing? Counselor Thexvar inquired. Dr. Nakamura expanded the display to show human industrial facilities scattered throughout galactic space. Humanity has established small manufacturing outposts in over 2,000 systems. Each facility is capable of producing spare parts, ammunition, and even complete vessels using local resources. 2,000 manufacturing facilities? Admiral Kexthor's voice carried new alarm. That represents an industrial capacity exceeding most galactic powers. Small facilities, Dr. Nakamura emphasized. Each outpost employs automated systems requiring minimal human oversight. The combined output is substantial, but individual installations are too small to attract attention. Until now, Chancellor Mordun observed grimly. Sarah Chun recognized that the revelation of human capabilities was creating exactly the kind of fear and suspicion she had hoped to avoid. Counselors, I understand that these revelations are concerning. However, I want to emphasize that humanity's expanded presence in galactic space has already produced measurable benefits for all civilizations. Such as, Resonator Prime Velthera asked skeptically. Piracy incidents have decreased by 67% in sectors with human patrols, Dr. Nakamura reported. Trade route security has improved dramatically, reducing shipping insurance costs for all species. Response times to natural disasters have been cut by 73% in covered regions. And territorial disputes? Prime Minister Vexnala asked pointedly. 17 major conflicts have been prevented from escalating to warfare, Commander Torres replied. Total estimated casualties prevented, approximately 47 million beings across various species. The numbers were impressive, but several delegates remained skeptical. These statistics assume that conflicts would have escalated without intervention, Admiral Kexthor argued. Many territorial disputes resolve peacefully through normal diplomatic channels. Some do, Sarachin agreed. However, our analysis indicates that the disputes we've intervened in had a 93% probability of escalating to military action based on historical patterns. Analysis based on what data? Chancellor Mordun asked. Human intelligence gathering is quite extensive, Dr. Nakamura replied diplomatically. We monitor communication patterns, fleet movements, resource allocations, and political developments throughout galactic space. You're spying on everyone, Counselor Thexvar accused. We're monitoring public information and conducting the same intelligence gathering that every galactic power practices, Commander Torres corrected. However, our sensor network is more comprehensive than most, allowing for better analysis of developing situations. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just deployed a massive military fleet. They had created a galaxy-spanning intelligence network that could monitor political and military developments in real time. Counselors, Sarachin said. Recognizing that the conversation was moving toward confrontation, I want to propose a formal framework for ongoing cooperation rather than continued suspicion. What sort of framework? Chancellor Mordun asked. Humanity is prepared to place our peacekeeping forces under partial council oversight, Sarachin announced. We would establish a joint command structure allowing council representatives to monitor and approve major interventions. The chamber fell silent as delegates considered this unexpected offer. Partial oversight. Admiral Kexthor asked carefully. Emergency interventions to prevent immediate casualties would remain under human command to ensure rapid response, Sarachin explained. However, major operations affecting territorial disputes or political situations would require council approval. And, if the council refuses such approval? Prime Minister Vexnala inquired. Then, human forces would not intervene unless facing clear humanitarian disasters, Commander Torres replied. Chancellor Mordun considered the proposal for several long moments. This would represent an unprecedented arrangement. No species has ever placed military forces under joint council command. These are unprecedented circumstances, Sarachin observed. Humanity possesses unprecedented peacekeeping capabilities, and we recognize that such capabilities require unprecedented accountability. What guarantees would we have that human forces would actually comply with council oversight? Resonator Prime Velthera asked. Dr. Nakamura activated a new display showing command and control networks. Human forces operate through centralized command structures using our quantum communication network. Council representatives could be integrated into command centers with real-time access to all operational decisions. Real-time access to human military planning. Admiral Kexthor's voice carried new interest. that would provide unprecedented insight into your actual capabilities and intentions. Exactly, Saracen agreed. Transparency builds trust, and trust is essential for effective peacekeeping. The proposal was bold, potentially revolutionary, and deeply concerning to species accustomed to maintaining strict control over their military forces. However, the alternative, confronting an invisible human fleet that had already demonstrated devastating capabilities, was even more concerning. The Council will need time to consider this proposal, Chancellor Mordun announced. In the meantime, what are humanity's immediate intentions regarding the Kepler sector and other current deployments? Human peacekeeping forces will maintain their current positions and continue current operations, Saracen replied. However, we'll establish communication protocols allowing Council observers to monitor our activities in real time. And if the Council ultimately rejects your oversight proposal? Admiral Kexthor asked bluntly. Saracen's expression remained diplomatic, but her voice carried quiet steel. Then, humanity will continue to provide peacekeeping services independently, as authorized by Article 15 of the Galactic Accords. However, we would prefer to work within established Council frameworks. The message was clear. Humanity would continue operating their fleet regardless of Council approval, but they were offering to submit to oversight voluntarily. The choice was between accepting some control over human operations or having no control at all. Chancellor Mordun recognized the political dynamics at play. The Council will convene an executive session to discuss this proposal. Ambassador Chun, humanity's offer will receive serious consideration. Thank you, Chancellor, Saracen replied. In the spirit of transparency, I should mention that Admiral Rebecca Chun will arrive within the hour to brief Council military advisors on human fleet dispositions and capabilities. Admiral Chun? Admiral Kexthor asked. The commander from the Kepler sector? My sister, Saracen confirmed. She commands our expeditionary fleet and will be available to answer any technical questions the Council might have. As the session adjourned, delegates throughout the chamber began urgent conversations with their governments. The galaxy had just learned that humanity possessed military capabilities rivaling the greatest powers, deployed those capabilities throughout galactic space without anyone's knowledge, and was now offering to submit to oversight that would provide unprecedented access to human strategic planning. The next few hours would determine whether this offer led to a new era of galactic cooperation or the first stages of a conflict that could reshape galactic civilization. What none of the delegates yet realized was that Admiral Rebecca Chen's briefing would reveal capabilities that made even the impressive demonstrations in the Kepler sector seem modest by comparison. Humanity had shown them 43,000 ships and offered partial oversight of peacekeeping operations. They had not yet mentioned the additional 300,000 vessels under construction in deep space facilities that didn't appear on any galactic star charts.